Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Star Trek Strange New World Season 3. I know, I am beyond late talking about this because Season 4 just dropped today, but I've been busy, and then I got lazy, and then I simply just didn't care. And then I thought, should I not? And then I'm all like, okay, I'll do it the week before season 4 drops, but then I forgot. Anyways, season 3, this is just my thoughts and stuff like that. When it comes to modern Trek, if you've ever watched any of my videos talking about Star Trek, you know I'm not a fan of modern Trek. I'm old school, that's how I like it. But Strange New Worlds, while not perfect, in my opinion, is the closest thing you can get to old Trek. But of course, they still do modern Trek stuff, which is kind of irritating. But for the most part, it is enjoyable. It was so enjoyable that like I bought season 2 on DVD. Once again, while not perfect, I still just liked it a lot. And I thought to myself, this could only get better with time, you know what I'm saying, after season 2. And I couldn't wait for season 3. Then, of course, the trailer for season 3 showed, and it showed the crew just having a good old time. And I'm just like, hold up, they left off on a huge cliffhanger at season 2. So I thought surely that like some of these newer characters they created for the franchise that's not part of TOS would probably die off or something like that, but nah. And they ruined their season 3 premiere, or better yet, that cliffhanger on season 2. So that was the first sign of bad things to come. Then, like, as I started, watching the season, I'm all like, okay, like they're starting to live up to the title name. Cause that's one problem I've had with this show. And that is, it's called Strange New Worlds, but how often do they go to an actual strange new world? Or better yet, just a world in general and stuff. It mostly takes place on the ship. Or if it takes place on another planet, they're always stuck in one room or just something like that. And so, like, when I started seeing them, exploring, space and, going to other planets, I'm like, okay, this is cool. But then the writing started to show itself. Like, characters started becoming way more underdeveloped than what they have in the past. There's way too many silly humorous type episodes, especially that involves Vulcan and stuff. And then there's the whole repetitiveness of like repeating episodes and just reworking them from older Star Trek shows, but reworking them into something that just felt bland or boring or just flat out stupid. And then when you watch those older shows, or at least think about those older shows that, they are based off of, you just think to yourself, well, heck, they did it a heck of a lot better back in the day. And it seems like nostalgia bait was like the main focus this season because I was just really baffled at how so many episodes harken back to that other Star Trek series, mainly that of TOS, of course. And but not only that, but just other storylines that were very, very similar. Now, to be fair, old Trek has always recycled old episode, old tropes and stuff like that. But they did it in a way that still felt new, fresh, and innovative. Here, it was just a carbon copy and everything. And it really showed the laziness that the writers put forth this season. I don't know what the heck happened. Maybe they were more focused on Starfleet Academy, and like writing and production just kind of like faltered this season in this show. I don't know. Like, I also like was really shocked by some of the graphics. The VFX were really downgraded this season. Because normally in modern Trek, that's one thing that can be praised. The visual effects are stunning and everything, and they look like they're movie quality. Here, there were times it felt like it was a video game. It was really shiny in the CGI, especially that of the ship. When it's flying around in space or doing something, or like a shuttlecraft, I'm just kind of like, where the budget at? Like, the writing is on the wall and everything, because there's only 2 more seasons left. And not only that, but it's like even the intro felt very, very, very visually fake and everything. It was almost like watching a cartoon ship just like fly around and stuff. Now, the tone, the humor and everything. What in the world were they thinking? You can tell they was going for like a really silly, goofy MCU type approach and stuff. And I know season 4, the first episode drop is the dinosaur episode, but at some point we're gonna have a puppet episode. And I'm just like, my God, what the world are you thinking? Like, there's only 10 episodes a season, and the numbers are starting to get fewer and fewer. So you don't have time for all this fluffy, like filler type stuff. You got to get straight to the point. And that's the major problem I have going into this season. They didn't get straight to the point. Like, it took them a long time to reveal what the heck the main like storyline was this season. Not only that, but the whole Gorn thing was just wrapped up way too quickly, to where they do what they always do in Star Trek. Oh, like, here's a powerful foe, so let's just make them go to sleep. Like, we saw that with the Borg and TNG and everything. But at least when they made them go to sleep, it was more believable because they're a cybernetic like species and everything. And they always like are a stickler to like the rules and stuff. And they have no individuality. Here with the Gorn, it just felt like a cop-out. And I was really disappointed with how they handled that whole Gorn storyline. Like, I was wondering, just how in the world are they gonna escape? Will they be in trouble with Starfleet? Like, they had such huge stakes at the end of season 2 that I thought for sure Pike is finally becoming that captain I wanted him to be in Strange New Worlds. Because before the show came out, they literally said, hey, we've heard you. We've listened to the complaints when it comes to Discovery. And this show is going to be different. It's going to start feeling more like old Trek. And I guess their way of feeling like old Trek is having it be very bright and very silly for some bizarre reason. And because I have a problem with a lot of these characters in the show, either ones they created or ones they take from TOS. Pike just cooks, and that's basically it. He never feels like a captain. He rarely gives, like, a command, and we rarely see him engage in space battle. Now, he was pretty cool in, like, Discovery Season 2, and one reason is because Anson Mount is a huge Star Trek fan, going all the way back to TOS and TNG, he revealed and stuff. And so, this is why his performance was the way it was in Discovery Season 2. But now that he has his own show, they literally wrote him just to be like a cook. He's always in his quarters. He's always cooking for everybody. He's always so jolly. And it's like they're trying to combine multiple captains in the helm without like creating their own version of Pike. The only good episodes with Pike is when it's an alternate future he's in and has to deal with the reality of that sacrifice he's gonna have to make. But it started being more compelling when they introduced, like his love interest and what she's going through this season. All for it to kind of feel just a little flat. Then there's Spock. This new version of Spock started off very cool, but now he's just comedic relief. Every Vulcan episode is just comedic, starting all the way back from the first season. And it's just like, can we not just have a serious Vulcan episode? Do they have to be like a parody and everything? And this is all stemming from those few seconds of Leonard Nimoy smiling in the unaired pilot. Just for a brief moment, a second or two. This is why Vulcans are constantly comedic in Strange New World. I get it. They're trying to say back then he didn't have a grasp on his what's it called, logic and everything, acting more human. But it was just because Leonard Nimoy was trying to craft out that character and seeing what worked and what didn't. And we see serious Vulcans are more entertaining in a way, I guess you could say. And not only that, but every time they have a Vulcan episode, it seems to break that of continuity. And it's just like, well, hold up, isn't this supposed to be canon, as they constantly keep saying? Uhura has been kind of sidelined to being now just a love interest at times, or copying an attitude with superior officers and stuff. When she started off very intriguing, like she started off as a cadet, they always do this with new Trek. They always bump people up to ensign really quickly after just one season and stuff. But one thing that was interesting about her is that in other seasons, they tried to show that, hey, she's willing to take on other tasks and learn other positions on the ship, other than just being a communications officer, which was cool because let's remember how the original one was. Always just saying, Captain, I'm scared, or screaming or something like that. Because it was the 1960s and she was a black woman and couldn't do much on television. And so I appreciate them always trying to elevate her character. But then after a while, it's just kind of like the things they do with her is just she's a love interest. Like with that of Ortega's like brother. That episode with him was very, very annoying and everything. They're just showing all the bad aspects of like Starfleet and not showing the good ones. And that is something that's been bugging me with New Trek. Earth, the Federation, and Starfleet no longer feels like a utopia. Now it feels like a dystopia where everybody's grumpy, everybody's pissed off, everybody's like killing, or like, they don't hold up to the same principles that they're supposed to. And he's trying to expose all that by showing what they went through with the Gorn, all because his sister became traumatized by it and turned into a darker person. And it's just kind of like, couldn't they write around that episode? Couldn't they write it much better? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just one of those things where it's like they feel like they're trying to crap on older Star Trek and what came before it and stuff. But Deep Space Nine was dark, but it still felt like Starfleet and Star Trek. But it's like, they even showed the bad side of Starfleet, which other shows have done. But they still show that Starfleet is one of the best things to be in, and Earth is one of the best places to live on. And they're losing that when these new writers are trying to put their own spin on it. Gene Roddenberry may not be perfect and wanted everything on Earth to be as evolved and perfect as can be, but life just can't be that way. And that's what other Trek shows started to show, but in a better way in the older days. but you still have to respect what he created, a utopia, like an evolved society. You can show the flaws, but you don't gotta show them in every episode. Then you have other characters like Palia, who, I'm sorry, is nothing against the actress, but I hate the character. She's just there for comedic relief. And why is she on the show if she's not doing anything engineering like? This is really, really bugging me. It's the same thing with Jet Reno, I think that's her name, from Discovery, a comedic character, chief of engineering, and yet they never do no engineering type stuff. I think Jet only did it one time, and one time only she said something scientific, and that was it. Other times she's being comedic or rude to like that of a male superior. With Palia, she's just goofy in the head and stuff. And there was one time they were getting really, really serious about something. Might have been the Gorn, because it's something she knew about them. And it's getting more serious and it's getting more serious. Then she pauses for a long time. And then she does like an MCU like quip and everything. All because she knows she was being recorded and she wanted to pause for dramatic effect. No, 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 no. Like, mm, this just makes me so mad. Like, I just wanted to scream and everything when she did that. Now, I have noticed they are now finally giving that of like Ortega's more of something to do. This is a blessing because why add this actress to your show if and she's a brand new character if you're never gonna do nothing with her? Once again, she is comedic relief and she's always making these quirks and quirky facial expressions and this and that. I guess she does that because she realizes, hey, I've never had a solo episode, so I might as well make an impression somehow, you know what I'm saying? And so, like, they finally started giving her character development. She's pissed off about the whole Gorn thing to the part where she's a darker character and she's disobeying, like, command rules and stuff. And it almost caused the ship to be, like, destroyed because she's not doing what she's told to do. And so I'm all like, okay, where is this going? Then she's finally have a solo episode where she crash landed on a planet, and my god, the VFX looked horrible. And so she's having to survive on her own until she meets a stranded Gorn. And you think she's gonna duke it out with it because she really hates them. But no, she just is like friendly to it and stuff. And they have a rapport and they try to survive together. And then it's that whole, what's that episode called? Domark, something like that from TNG, where the universal communicator's down and they have to like figure out what the other person is saying, and it's a complete rip off. My God. And so like the episode was not very good for like a million type reasons. Like, how the heck did she make a water compressor out of just spare parts? I know they did that in other Trek shows, but at least they did that with characters that were very, very smart. Data, Spock, stuff like that. Ortegas doesn't really come off as like an engineer or a scientist. Then, of course, it dies at the end, and she's extremely pissed off about that because La'an has been acting very edgy. It's like they finally now are expressing her con side, like, and it took that stupid Vulcan episode just to show like her con side and everything. Like we got a little glimpse into her con, like, lineage in like season 2, but now they're showing that, hey, people who are descendants of him have really, really like aggressive tendencies and genocidal tendencies and stuff like that. Because when she had the Vulcan DNA and stuff like that, it really showed her aggressive side. And even though she was cured, it still lingered on in her. But why is it taking so long to do something Khan like with this character? You know what I'm saying? Like they purposely made her related to him, but they never paid it off, and they're barely paying it off now. And so my thing is, I hate when New Trek does this. They will bring in a brand new character and say they're related to a famous character in the past. And so you're expecting something cool to happen with that. But then again, the writers are like, nah, we're just teasing you with this. Like, we're just like punking you out and everything. We're trolling you and everything. Like, ain't nothing special gonna happen with this character. And it's just frustrating and stuff. But other than Palia, there's one character that is frustrating me more than anybody else, and that's James T. Kirk himself. Why in the freak nuts is this man in the show? Why? It's supposed to be set 15 years or so before he takes over the Enterprise. Now, in the past, when he showed up, it was cool because it was an alternate future where he was in command of the Enterprise. That's how you do it. But now he's just showing up left and right. And they had a nice homage episode where he was forced to take control of his original starship, where he's like a lieutenant and everything, because the other officers are indisposed and there's a huge threat. So, like, we see members of the Enterprise beam aboard and help him out. And oh, look, it's a TOS reunion and everything. There's Scotty, there's Uhura. I can't talk right now. Uhura, and there's Spock. And I'm just kind of like, okay, like I see what you're doing and everything. I can give that a slight pass. But then, of course, the aliens that are like, attacking them, they have to make the ship so big, so aggressive looking, and to show that they're a threat, while the Enterprise is on board trying to stop them that way. And we find out that they're actually human. They're not aliens. They're just wearing costumes to look aggressive. Apparently, they was part of like some space research thing, and I guess got lost or whatever, and their descendants, like, it was like hundreds of years ago, and their descendants, like, their offspring, kept living on this ship, and I guess became feral, whatever you call that word and stuff like that. And it's just kind of like, okay, it's an intriguing premise, but I don't know, like I'm just not feeling it. And then there's that silly, goofy wedding episode where everybody lost their memory. And, well, not memory, but like, I guess they forgot what they was doing. And I guess Spock and like the nurse Chapel was supposed to get married when they're not. And so it's that Trelane episode, and in order to snap everybody out of it, they had to like hit people really hard or something like that. And we even see like Spock like just make a weird expression on his face, like he has so much humanity, and it's to the point where they're just no longer caring no more. And that whole Trelane episode is like, why is he here? Didn't Kirk meet him for the first time and Spock and all them on TOS? And now he's in this episode. Like, there's so many characters, like the Gorn and everything, that characters are meeting for the first time on this show, when they're not supposed to be meeting them. And there's always been this fan theory that Trelane is a Q. And oh, look, his father just so happens to contact him. And it's the voice of the actor who plays Q. Like John Delaney, I think his name is. And I'm just kind of like, why? Why are they always doing this fan theories and trying to make them come true? And why are they taking all these older characters for nostalgia bait and stuff like that? Like it's just bugging me, because it could have been a really good episode. It could have been a really good season. But instead, it's almost like they didn't have the confidence in themselves to create something original, so they just harping back to something that people are familiar with and make the fans happy. Other characters, like number one, she's just kind of there this season. Obanga is just kind of like always doing what he's always doing. Nothing really medical wise, and always talking about his war past with the Klingons. And I'm like, we know this dude's gonna leave the Enterprise. Let him do something majorly medical, you know? But the thing that was also very shocking this season is how they handled the Gamble and what's that lady's name? Batel. That did not go the way I thought it was gonna go. So Batel gotten I guess impregnated with a Gorn egg. And we know what happens to them when they get infected by one. They turn into one themselves, and many people theorize that maybe she was going to turn into a Gorn. Then with the whole Gamble thing, he's a brand new character, he's all happy and excited to be there, and he goes on an away mission and something burns his eyes out, and like he gets taken back to the ship, but then he sees like a baby Gorn or something like that in this thing he looked in. So we thought, okay, maybe somehow he is possessed by that of a Gorn or something like that. But it seems to be an ancient being. Gamble is deader than dead, and the thing has taken over his body. And Obanga feels responsible for this and stuff like that. Now, the episode is fine on itself. It takes us to a new world, and there's a catastrophe, and like they have to find a way out, and this and that, right? So as the season's going on, you know, Batel, there's something weird going on with her. And she seems to know what this ancient being is, or whatever this ancient being knows what a Gorn is. But then it turns out they're kind of like celestial beings or whatever. And it's just like, how do you go from Gorn to like a celestial being? And then they duke it out with magical ways and this and that. And it's just kind of like, you can tell that multiple writers tried to write this episode and write this story arc, only for somebody to not figure out what the heck they was doing, and then they settled on whatever the heck this was. And it's embarrassing, you know what I'm saying, to see these characters just like, you know, go through the most mundane type stuff there is, or just the weird storytelling that they give these characters this season. Like, there's something that really could have been done with the Gorn. Even though the Gorn have no business being in this show, they were really building up to something special. And then it just, like, faltered and stuff. So, with the hope of season 4, I am hoping to God season 4 is an improvement over that came with season 3. Season 3 was just an embarrassment. Like, it's not horrible, but I found myself scrolling on my tablet like a lot. And it took me a long time to finish it because I simply just didn't care. Heck, till this day, I still have not finished season 5 of Discovery. I just can't do it. I'm going to try my best, but I just can't do it. These creators and writers really need to focus. They need to sit their behinds down. They need to realize that they don't have that many episodes a season. It's not like the old days where you can have filler. And their show is coming to an end very soon. They need to hammer out episodes that are important, story arcs that are important, and make everything meaningful. Because they can't just keep on doing this. Because this show can be so much better. Because it is one of the better, newer Trek shows. I just can't stomach none of the other ones. But it's almost like the creators just don't care at some point and they just want to do their own silly or nostalgia bait type thing. And, you know, I do worry about the state of Trek because all the Trek shows have now been canceled. This show only has one more season after season 4. There's one more of Academy, which I've only seen one episode of Academy. Nobody knows what the future really holds for Star Trek. They want to go back to the movies. They can't even do Section 31 proper. I'd rather have no Trek than whatever the heck we've been given. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.